Welcome back, Helldivers. I've already made a video about the best support weapon against the automatons and the best primary weapon to use against the automatons. I'll link them both down below if you haven't seen them. But in this video, I want to focus on the best offensive stratagem against the automatons. Why? Well, because I was pretty much just using the same stuff every single day. Found something that worked, just never took it off. And I was making a loadout video, like the best loadout to use against the automatons, hence why I did a support weapon and the primary weapon. And I thought, you know what, I actually really need to go back and test some of the offensive stratagems again, some of the things that I've neglected, and see if I've been missing out on using them. That being said, a lot of stratagems in Helldivers are viable if they're in the right build, in the right loadout, and you make up for their weaknesses with something else. However, some stratagems are just far outperform everything else, and that's kind of what this video is about. Which stratagems outperform everything else. Now, when it comes to offensive stratagems, you kind of have three categories. You have things that are really designed to take out heavies, like your 500 kilo bomb. You have things that are designed to take out small to medium targets, like your cluster bombs, and even your gas strikes and your nade bombs. And then you also have kind of like support stratagems, which are your smokes and your EMS strikes. Now, at first I was actually going to just do everything, and I've already been like working on this for like a month now, just chipping away at it, and I just realized I just got to get it done. So I've narrowed it down to just heavies, because that's primarily what I use offensive stratagems for. So it's going to include the 500 kilo bomb, it's going to include the Eagle airstrike, the orbital walking barrage, which I completely forgot about, the orbital rail cannon, the orbital laser, the orbital precision strike, the 380mm HE barrage, the 120 barrage, and the 110 rocket pods, which I also completely forgot about. So we're going to see how these perform on hulks, factory stratas, tanks, and then also structures like factories, detector towers, and command bunkers. As with all my testing, the footage in the background will be lower levels because I'm counting how many shots it takes to kill a tank or a hulk or a strider, but then any recommendations that I do have, I run through on a Helldive difficulty. Right, let's get into it. Okay, starting with the hulks and the 500 kg bomb. So it actually takes 2 shots to kill the hulks from the front, if it's directly in front of the hulks, or even like underneath them. And this does seem odd because if you look at how much damage a 500 kg does, you think it should be well enough to take out a hulk. You can go to helldivers.io. If you haven't seen my damage video, I'll link that down below too. But you can check out how much damage everything does, how much health all enemies have on their limbs, and even if they've got explosive immunity. Like for example, the Hulk actually has explosive immunity on its arms, doesn't have explosive immunity on its legs. However, its legs are not a fatal part, meaning if you take out the legs, it doesn't actually take out the Hulk. You got to take out the back plate, which is why it does do a 1 shot to the back of a Hulk. So 2 kgs to the front, 1 500 kg to the back. Okay, the Eagle rocket pods on the Hulks. If all of them hit, it is like a 1 use, or not 1 shot because it's like 3 rockets in one, but you will take them out with 1 use of the rocket pods. But the big thing here is if they hit. These are incredibly inconsistent. It depends how many hit and where they hit. In this example, some of them actually just blow off the arm of the Hulk. And sometimes they just completely and utterly miss altogether. I tried a bunch of different angles. I tried to do them close. I tried to do them far. I tried to do them right underneath. If you haven't used rocket pods in a while, I actually forgot how they work, and they just target the closest, largest enemy to the beacon. So I tried different positions, which shouldn't technically matter, but sometimes they just miss. Okay, moving on to the Eagle airstrike against the Hulks. Important thing to know with the Eagle airstrike is it does actually have the same pattern when it drops its bombs. So here I was just basically spamming Eagle airstrike. I was aiming at the exact same spot on the map, throwing it, and then having a look at the patterns. You can see the craters, they keep going in the same spot, which means you can be very consistent when using the Eagle airstrike. The cool thing is, if you're a little bit off, like if the enemy's directly on that, on the red laser, they actually have a bomb in front and a bomb behind. But if they move forward or backwards, they're just going to cop a direct hit from the Eagle airstrike. Which means against the Hulks, you can very consistently do a one-shot, especially if you are stunning them with EMS or stun nades. You can just put an Eagle airstrike right on them and you always take them out with a single shot. The great thing with them as well is you can also take out multiple Hulks. Once again, stun nades and EMSs also help just to keep them in the right spot, but they are definitely not necessary. The only thing you've really got to be careful with nearly all the Eagle strikes is terrain, because they do come in quite low. So any sort of bumps in the terrain can impact how useful they are. And I actually haven't upgraded this yet either, so it will be even better. There is an additional upgrade on the ship, which gives you an extra missile as well. Okay, the orbital walking barrage on the Hulks, you're only going to need one use if a shell hits the Hulk. The interesting thing about the walking barrage, the first barrage is actually usually like pretty close to where you actually throw the stratagem. The other barrages, like the 380 and the 120, usually the safest spot is actually where you throw it. So if you want to like destroy everything around you, just like throw it at your feet. Whereas the walking barrage is like usually in a line on that first one. It's a little bit more consistent than the other barrages, but still have to pray to RNGesus that it actually hits the Hulk. It's definitely not the intended use for the walking barrage, trying to hit a single small target. Okay, the orbital precision, most people are familiar with this because I think it's one of the first ones you use when you start Helldivers. Once again, you either need to time it really well or use a stun nade or an EMS, keep everything still. The Hulks will take one shot and be done with. However, they can this can be inconsistent, and I did have Hulks that looked pretty dead on. They were stunned, they were not moving, and they actually took more than a single shot. They took 2 shots. A little bit disappointed considering that, how well timed you need to make precision shots, that they didn't always die to them. Okay, the 380mm barrage, similar to the walking barrage, it will one-shot the Hulks. It's not the best use of a 380, trying to hit a small target in a base. The main uses for these barrages is this: if you have a big base and there's lots of targets, there's Hulks, there's Stratas, there's other stuff, there's tanks, yeah, sure, then you can throw a 380 in there, and it's just a bonus if you get the Hulk, but yeah, really not intended to take out single targets with the barrages. The same logic applies to the 120. They just have a smaller radius and actually less damage, and even this Hulk here takes I think at least 1 shot from this and doesn't blow up. It's survived this explosion damage, so yeah, even if you do get lucky, this is not going to be super effective. Before all this testing, I actually thought I would prefer the 120s, but now I'm moving towards the 380s against the automatons. Once again though, it's not ideal against Hulks. It comes up later in the video about what you should be using barrages against. Okay, the orbital rail cannon is a guarantee one shot on Hulks. I probably use orbital rail cannon more than anything else, and that's going to change by the end of this video. But yeah, anyone who's used this will know that it's a guaranteed kill on those heavies. Okay, the orbital laser on Hulks, yeah, not ideal to use one of your 3 only charges on a single Hulk, but if they're part of a base and there's other stuff there, then yeah, it's going to take out Hulks very easily. Okay, so overall, this is how I summarize how they did against the Hulks. You have like the guarantee hits, like the orbital laser and the orbital rail cannon are basically guaranteed kills. You never fail basically when you throw those in the general direction of the Hulk. Of course, downside of the orbital laser is you have limited uses, but it can take out multiple Hulks. Downside of the rail cannon is you got a big long cooldown after it. The other ones that were very consistent at killing the Hulks, not guaranteed, but like very consistent, and once you master them, you pretty much always kill a Hulk. The Eagle airstrike, 1 use. I find it more forgiving. You basically have 3 attempts at it if you've got the first upgrade for the Eagle airstrikes. The 500 kilo bomb, 2 bombs in the front, will destroy it, or one bomb from the back. So once again, similar to the Eagle and the 500 kg, you can destroy a Hulk without having to recharge. The stratagems that were inconsistent, the orbital precision, strangely, was inconsistent. It shouldn't take 2 shots, but it did. And then the Eagle rocket pods, I think, are very disappointing. They really should be a lot more consistent with taking out Hulks. And then the ones that I think are just like not appropriate for a single target, single small target like a Hulk, all your barrages, your 120s, your 380s, and your walking, it's just not the ideal use for those stratagems. Okay, moving along to the Stratas, and once again starting out with a 500 kg bomb. I tried lots of different ways to get a one-shot, different angles, being up high, climbing on it, putting it in different positions. Overall, what happens is the Eagle airstrike comes in at such a low angle, it is hard to get the actual explosive onto the Strata. Now, if you've looked at the data sheet, the weapon data sheet, you'll know that there is a projectile damage number and there's an explosive damage number. And essentially, you want both. You want the bomb to actually hit, because when it hits, it does a huge amount of damage, and then you want it to blow up, and that'll do additional damage. If you can get it onto its face, it will destroy the faceplate, blow it up, and you will one-shot it. However, it is not common. But when it does happen, it is very cool. What is pretty consistent is that you can use 2 Eagle 500 kg bombs to sort of run between the legs, and 2 shots of that will take it down. So you will be able to take down a Strata before having to rearm, and that's pretty consistent. The absolute worst that you can do is have the bomb on the outside and only hitting one of the legs. If you only hit one leg, like in this case I was targeting just a single leg, it took 4 bombs to take it down. So you really want to aim for that middle and try to be hitting as many legs as possible. And I don't even know if it's the legs that's hitting, or if it's the undercarriage that's hitting, or just a combination of all things. I just found it most consistent, sort of dead center. Okay, the Eagle airstrike against the Stratas, you can kill it in 2 uses, and you have 3 uses total, so that's quite nice. If you hit the side of it, I think it takes off one of the armored plates, and it'll take it down. However, more often than not, consistently, 3 Eagle airstrikes, so you will have to rearm. So very similar to the 500 kg, because you get 2 uses with that, then you have to rearm, and 2 of them takes it out. And similar with this, you pretty much can always take it out if you just throw 3 of them in the general direction of this Strata, and it will fall down, then you have to rearm. Okay, rocket pods. Never used rocket pods against the Stratas before until today. They can take off the turret very easily off the top, but you can't guarantee where these things hit. It's more consistent at hitting it because it's a larger target compared to the Hulk, but you still can't guarantee where it hits. And because there's destructible stuff on top of these Stratas, you're not guaranteed to kill it before having to rearm. In my case, one of them took off the turrets, one of them ended up taking off the like the top back plate, and then the third one, I'm not too sure where that went, and then I had to rearm, and then the 4th one eventually actually killed it. So not very efficient, effective, or consistent. Okay, so obviously a kind of similar story with using a barrages again, like the 380. Once again, at least it's a bigger target this time, but you're still going to be having to pray that one of these rounds actually hits it. In this case, I'm kind of keeping the Strata in the zone to see if it gets hit. I've got a little dome protecting me as well, but usually it would be walking towards you and walking out of the zone. So once again, if it's in a big base and there's other targets around, you just really need there to be a lot of targets for these 380s or any of the barrages to really be working effectively. Factories, Hulks, Stratas, other stuff around. Defense missions can also be really good for it too. The 120 mil was pretty disappointing in this clip here. They actually took a couple hits and still didn't go down with it. And I was like, that's no good. Okay, the orbital precision. This won't one-shot it even if you hit it right on the snoot. It will just take its armor off. You can just see it here as I fall down. The armor on the faceplate's gone. That's his brain exposed. Couldn't take it out with a single shot, which means you'll be on a cooldown. You can consistently take it. Consistently? I don't know if it's consistent. I have to check my notes. You can take it down with 2 shots, but you're going to have a big, long cooldown in between. Orbital rail cannon is in a similar boat as a precision. You can two-shot it, but you have no control over where this actually hits. As soon as you target it, like if this thing's moving around, you're not guaranteed that the rail cannon is going to shoot in the same spot, and you kind of need it to shoot in the same spot. The best case is you can two-shot it with a rail cannon if it's just sitting directly in front of you and it hits the exact same spot. Worst case for me, I think I gave up after 3. I was like, yeah, okay. After 3 cooldowns, I was like, there's no point really using the orbital rail cannon on the Strider. It's not consistent enough. It's a waste. I feel like a bit of a broken record when it comes to barrages, but orbital walking barrage, same as the 380s. If it hits, does huge damage, but you still have the potential of it not actually hitting. Looks cool. And similar to the Hulk, the orbital laser absolutely destroys Striders. So has a bit of juice left in the tank to take anything else in the base. Once again, major downside is you only get 3 uses per match. Okay, so my summary of how the stratagems stack up against the Striders. The only guaranteed kill is the orbital laser. Then we have what I would consider consistent kills of the Strider without a cooldown or a rearm. You can use the 500 kg. You can one-shot it to the face, but consistently do 2. With the Eagle Airstrike, you can 2-shot to the body, but consistently do 3. Regardless, both can take out a Strider before having to rearm. Then we have the next level down, which I would say is inconsistent and or it needs to rearm or have a cooldown. Orbital Precision, 2 shots if you hit the same location, but you need to rearm and have a cooldown in between. The rocket pods, 4 total is what I had. You could get lucky with 3 and avoid the cooldown, but it's inconsistent. Then you have the orbital rail cannon. I gave up after 3 shots, both inconsistent and a massive cooldown. And then once again, I have the same category as like not really ideal. It is a bit better with a bigger target, but your barrages, your 380s, your 120s, and your walking barrages, it's kind of just a bonus if there are enemies in a base like Striders and Hulks and that kind of stuff, but you need a lot of targets for them to be effective. And so the biggest change from the Hulk results is for Striders, the orbital rail cannon really fell off. When it came to the Hulks, it's really good on Hulks, guaranteed kill. It's awful against Striders. That was the biggest sort of change in ranking. Okay, let's talk about tanks now. Every single thing will one-shot a tank. It will kill it with 1 use. Now, so I sort of, once again, break this down. The guaranteed kills, your orbital laser, your orbital rail cannon is back up at the top again. It's very strong against Hulks. It's very strong against tanks. Rubbish against the Striders. Rocket pods actually performed pretty well against tanks here as well. It's their best performing area overall. For whatever reason, if you're running rocket pods, pretty much throw it on a tank. That's its main use. Then you have consistent stuff, but you still need to aim. 500 kg bomb, very consistent. Airstrike, very consistent. Orbital precision, very consistent. You just need to be able to hit those shots. So they're not necessarily guaranteed, but they are consistent. And then, like usual, just need to pray your orbitals, your walking barrages, your 120s, and your 380s. Okay, moving on to structures, specifically factories. Once again, everything here can kill a factory, technically. However, rail cannons and rocket pods, they obviously lock onto targets, the closest targets nearby. So if they do lock onto something inside a factory, it will destroy the factory, but it's obviously not their intended use. They're intended for single targets. And so if everything can destroy a factory, I really find it comes down to about the cooldowns. And if you really want to waste a stratagem on a factory or be sitting on a cooldown when a heavy actually shows up. Of course, orbital lasers are like very good against factories, can take out multiple factories, but you know, you're going to be using one of your charges. So I always really want to use it when there's factories and there's Hulks and there's multiple enemies and there's Striders and other things you can take out at the same time. The other stratagems that excel at factories are your Eagle stratagems because they're not on cooldown immediately, like your 500 kilo bomb and your Eagle airstrike. I think it's probably a bit excessive to use the 500 kg on a factory. However, with the Eagle airstrike, and you've got 3 uses of them, I actually use them quite often on factories. I think that's a pretty good use case for them. And you've still got 2 left over to deal with actually a bunch of Hulks. You're not sort of sitting on a cooldown. But of course, this is actually finally when the barrages perform better. and you've got automaton bases, you've got factories and a high density of enemies. This is when I probably prefer the 380 over nearly everything. Maybe the walking. No, I think I prefer the 380, and I have upgraded this, by the way, the final upgrade of the barrages, 380s. Then I probably put the walking barrages, and then I probably do the 120s. But yeah, this is the thing that barrages are for, is taking out bases where things are clustered together and they're not moving. And on that note, let's talk about detector towers. These are the things that spot you and then just spawn in copious amounts of automatons. And yeah, barrages work at taking down detector towers. Actually pretty decent. You can throw your 380s. This is probably the best structure for 120s because it is a little bit smaller. 120s, 380s, and your walking barrages will all take out detector towers. Of course, the orbital laser will take out the detector tower as well, and then go on to destroy the factory nearby, then go on to destroy the Strider and the little Raider and every other little enemy nearby as well. Very effective. Use orbital lasers on detector towers if you need to. The 500 kg bomb also destroys detector towers. Just place it right next to it, and you can blow up a detector tower as well. Now, I didn't actually know this before, but a precision strike can also do the same thing as the 500 kg. Just put it right next to it and you can take out a detector tower. As with the factories, the rocket pods and the rail cannon sort of not intended to take out structures, and they actually can't do it. They can take out factories because enemies spawn inside factories. They get locked onto them, but they cannot take out the detector towers, the rail cannon, or the rocket pods. And this is where our golden child falls from grace. The Eagle airstrike cannot take out the detector towers, can take out factories, but anything more than that, these structures just are resilient to it. It doesn't work. It's performed very well across all the other categories, but when it comes to detector towers and other structures, which you'll see, it's not so good. So overall, to summarize detector towers, sort of the guaranteed easy mode is the orbital laser. Guarantee destruction of it, but you need to like get an accurate throw, would be your 500 kg and your precision strike. You're kind of good would be all your barrages, like your 120s, your 380s, and your walking barrages. Bit memey, but also a bit fun, and you know, kind of looks cool if you blow it up that way. And then your ineffective things are your orbital rail cannon, your rocket pods, and your Eagle airstrikes. First time the Eagle airstrike has not performed well over the testing. Okay, I did test another structure, which is the command bunker, because these can be kind of annoying, but they have the same results as the detector. So if you get a 500 kg bomb on top of it, it'll one-shot it. A barrage to take it out, precision strike, the orbital precision takes it out, and once again, the ones that are ineffective on the detector are also ineffective here. Your rail cannon, your rocket pod, and your Eagle airstrike. Even though the Eagle airstrike does take out the little turrets on top, it doesn't blow up the factory itself or the command station itself. Once again, biggest weakness of the Eagle airstrike is actually structures. Okay, so now we need to apply all of this testing. Like, how does it feel when you actually play the game? What are the strongest stratagems against all these different things, and how can they put them into a build? So obviously the orbital laser is objectively the strongest stratagem. Guarantees kills on hulks, tanks, striders, can take out multiple heavies, can flatten bases, destroys all the structures, but of course you only get 3 uses. Personally, the way that I use it is I use it for like objective clearing. So if you do have like a command bunker mission, it's fantastic for that. If you're doing a blitz mission, it's fantastic for that too, to take out factories. I also use it as my like oh crap button, like when things start to get a little bit hairy, especially if you're with like a random team doing a Helldive mission and you just need to wipe the field, or if you need to wipe the field to like as the ship comes into extracts, like that can be a really good strategy to use it for then. Often I'm holding on to it, so if you are holding onto your orbital lasers, which is, you know, you have to pick your time to use them because you only get 3, you kind of need all your other stratagems putting in work. So what do we know? What are the stratagems that are doing work? Of course, the 500 kg performed well across the board, across all categories. It can take out hulks, it can take out striders, all before having to rearm. It's consistent in doing that, especially if you get the right placement, and it can take down structures. The only downside is really mastering the timing, and it has a very small blast radius. So I think everyone was probably surprised with how small Like, it's a big explosion with a small blast radius, so you really have to get it in the right spot. But if you can basically deal with everything with the 500 kg. But let's also talk about the Eagle Airstrike. It matches the 500 kg in the heavy category. In fact, I think it's better than the 500 kg against Hulks. It can take out multiple Hulks. I think it's easier and more forgiving to take out Hulks than the 500 kg is. It can take out Stratas before needing to rearm. It's very consistent in doing that too. But of course, what we found was that its weakness is against structures, with the exception of factories. You can take out factories as well. Personally, and this is where you need to just apply, try these yourself and see what you like. I actually prefer the Eagle Airstrike over the 500 kg because I think it's a little bit more forgiving, and it's also better at taking down small and medium enemies compared with the 500 kg. So I think it has a little bit more flexibility than that. But of course, then you have no way of dealing with structures. So your other stratagem has to deal with structures, or you're just going to need a team that deals with structures, or you just ignore structures, because often with those ones that you have to blow up, you get given a hell bomb. So you just have to call in a hell bomb to blow them up and deal with them the sort of standard way. My preferred loadout is this. I do like to use the Eagle Airstrike and the laser cannon. I use the laser cannon for wiping the board, for extracting, for when things are getting a little bit gnarly, or for objective based stuff, and then I just rely on the Eagle Strike all the other times and just spam it. You could use Eagle Airstrike and the barrages to take out structures. It's a little bit memey. People are going to look at you a bit sideways when you put on the 380 and you're like, okay, this guy's going to blow me up. But it does actually work when you go against the automatons. I still don't like the barrages because that's the only thing they can deal with is structures. You could run the Eagle Airstrike and the 500 kg together. Personally, I don't like that because you have to rearm them at the same time. However, I might play around with it a little bit more and just see if I'm a bit more liberal, a bit more democratic with my Eagle Airstrikes and my 500 kgs and let them rearm at the same time and spam them a little bit more. I would also want to give an honorable mention to Rail Cannon. I probably use Rail Cannon more than anything else because it was probably the first thing I found I was really consistent with using, and I just never took it off. And it wasn't until I did this, I was like, you know what, it does really well against Hulks, it does really well against tanks, but that's about it. It's not good for structures, it's not good for Stratas. 500 kg outperforms it, Eagle Airstrike outperforms it, of course laser cannon and the orbital laser outperforms it. So yeah. And of course, the other thing you can do, if you are just going to rely on like the hell bombs to take out structures, you could use your Eagle Airstrike, and then you can put on something else to deal with small and medium enemies as well. There you have it, my top pick of offensive stratagems against automatons. Eagle Airstrike is definitely my favorite, but I definitely wouldn't argue with someone who was like 500 kg is my favorite. And of course, I think the orbital laser is just objectively the strongest stratagem you can have anyway. That's just kind of a given. If you like the video and want to support the channel and cannot think of a comment, you can just leave the words Eagle Airstrike or your favorite stratagem. As usual, it's been a pleasure. This is Myelin Games. Peace.